Today, we're going to break down some really fascinating new research that could totally change how we build AI. It's all about giving AI a better memory. And trust me, that is a much, much bigger deal than it sounds. Okay, let's dive in. So here's the weird thing that kicks this whole thing off. We've got these incredibly powerful AI models, right? They can write code, analyze super complex literature, but they can also be, well, kind of forgetful. Think about a really common piece of code, like a basic for loop. A lot of the time, these AIs have to figure out how to write one from scratch every single time, instead of just knowing it. And this really gets to the heart of the problem. On one hand, you have deep reasoning, which AIs are amazing at, the really tough stuff. But on the other hand, they're not so great at instant recall, just knowing something. The way you and I know Paris is the capital of France. It's like a brilliant mathematician who has to prove that 2 plus 2 equals 4 from scratch every time they need it. Yeah, it works, but man, what a waste of brain power. So this leads us to two basic ways researchers are trying to make AI more efficient. You can either build an AI that's great at thinking it through, or one that's a master at just knowing it. Right now, the most popular method is called mixture of experts, or MO. The easiest way to think about this is like having a huge team of different specialists. When a problem comes in, the AI figures out which couple of experts are right for the job, and they work together to compute the answer. It's super powerful for really complex problems, but for a simple fact, it's like calling a board meeting just to remember someone's birthday. Total overkill. Now, what this new paper proposes is a different approach, something they call Engram. This is the just knowing it method. Forget the team of thinkers. Engram is basically a gigantic, super fast cheat sheet. A photographic memory for common knowledge and patterns. It doesn't figure out the answer, it just looks it up in a flash. So how in the world does this Engram thing actually give an AI a memory boost? Let's take a quick peek under the hood. What's really clever about Engram is how it's designed. It's not trying to replace the AI's main brain. Those are the blocks you see here. Instead, it's an add-on. Kind of like a specialized memory chip that works right alongside it. It sits there, recognizes common stuff, and just feeds that info directly to the main brain. This very neatly separates the job of remembering from the job of actual thinking. And this brings us to the million-dollar question the researchers faced. If you've got a limited budget of computing power to build an AI, how do you split it? How much do you spend on the thinking parts, the experts, versus the knowing part, that Engram memory? Well, what they found is this fascinating thing they call the U-shaped scaling law. This chart basically shows that if you lean too hard on just thinking, the AI gets clunky and inefficient. But if you lean too hard on just memory, it can't solve anything new. The sweet spot, that lowest point on the curve, is a hybrid. It's the Goldilocks principle for AI, a mix that is just right. Okay, so giving an AI a better memory helps it remember facts. That makes sense. But, and this is the really cool part, the benefits go way, way beyond just memorization. This is where things get wild. Get this. When the researchers put an Engram-powered AI up against a regular one of the exact same size, they saw a 5% jump in performance on general reasoning. And these aren't memory tests. These are problems that require actual logic, like solving tricky word puzzles. And it gets even crazier. They saw a 3% boost in coding ability. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but programming is one of the most complex things we ask AIs to do. So how does adding a simple memory bank make an AI a better coder? Seriously, this is the big question. It feels totally backwards, right? Giving a student a cheat sheet for facts shouldn't make them better at solving problems they've never seen before. But it turns out there's a really smart reason it works. This image here, which is kind of like a brain scan of the AIs, gives us the answer. What it's showing is that the Engram module handles all the easy foundational knowledge right at the beginning. This basically gives the AI's main brain a massive head start, letting it jump straight to the harder, more creative parts of a problem. So here's the key takeaway. Engram takes care of all the simple, repetitive stuff, recognizing common patterns, names, functions, and by doing that, it frees up the AI's main computational brain to focus all of its power on the hard parts, like figuring out the logic of a program. It makes the AI's reasoning deeper without actually adding more layers. It's a classic case of work smarter, not harder. And you can see this in action on tasks that students and developers face every day, especially when you're trying to make sense of a massive, confusing codebase. Just look at these numbers. For a task like tracking one variable through thousands of lines of code, the Engram AI jumps from 77% accuracy all the way to 89%. That is a huge leap. It means the AI is way less likely to get lost in the weeds and can actually understand the big picture of how a complex system works. So, beyond just making AI smarter, this design has massive implications for how we actually build them. It tackles one of the biggest roadblocks we have in scaling AI up. Here's the brilliant engineering trick they used. With the thinking modules, you have to wait and see what the problem is. But with Ngram's memory, the system can look ahead in the text and predict what facts it's going to need. It uses a technique called prefetching. So while the AI's main brain is working on paragraph 1, the system is already grabbing the memories it'll need for paragraph 3 from storage, so they're ready to go with zero delay. And here's why that is a total game changer. The AI's thinking part needs to live on this super fast, super expensive hardware, kind of like a tiny high-tech workbench. You can only fit so much on it. But because Ngram can prefetch, you can store its massive library of facts on much bigger, much cheaper hardware. Think of it like a giant warehouse. This whole system is so smart, it just fetches what it needs ahead of time. It completely gets around the tiny workbench problem, which could let us build AIs with memories vastly larger than we ever thought possible. The researchers themselves think this is a fundamental change. They're not just saying this conditional memory is a neat trick. They're saying it's an essential building block, an indispensable part of how all large-scale AI models are going to be built from now on. We used to think the only way to make AI smarter was to make its brain bigger. This shows us you can also make it smarter by giving it a better memory. So by pulling apart knowing from thinking, we can build AIs that aren't just more knowledgeable, but are better reasoners, better coders, and way more efficient. It really makes you wonder, right? If a photographic memory is the key that unlocks this next level of intelligence, what human skill is next on the list?